Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wholesale Change, the webcast and podcast from Distribution Strategy Group, where we offer thought leadership for wholesale change agents like you. Because if you're on this program, you probably are a wholesale change agent. My name is Ian Heller. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer with Distribution Strategy Group. And I'd like to welcome my co-host, the Doctor of Distribution, who I recently named Dr. Beinstein, Jonathan Bein, PhD. Jonathan, how are you today?
An apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Well, you know what? I'm not eating any apples then because I don't want to keep you away. Okay. So we have a great guest this morning, but before we do that, I want to thank our sponsor, who is Epicor, because for more than 50 years, Epicor has helped distributors stay ahead with flexible, powerful solutions designed to increase sales, streamline operations, and improve customer experience. Epicor's industry-leading distribution ERP solutions are built specifically to meet the unique needs of wholesalers with everything you need to grow your sales, profits, and productivity while distancing yourself from your competition. Epicor is focused on the things that matter to you: work queues, PO variance queues, kitting, assembly and production orders, advanced inventory forecasting, VMI, and special project pricing. They build their software using industry best practices and 50 years of distribution experience. But Epicor solutions are far more than just tools for pick, pack, and ship. Fully cloud-based with a modern UI, Epicor offers complete robust e-commerce solutions, powerful BI and analytics tools, modern API and EDI, value-added services, WMS, virtual assistants, and much more. You can learn more about how Epicor helps thousands of wholesalers succeed by visiting epicor.com. Now we have we have hundreds of podcast listeners. Welcome to the show if you're on the podcast, but we love it when you attend live and ask questions. So if you're on the show today live, please submit some questions because we have a fantastic guest today. We're honored to have Mr. Barry Litwin. Barry, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you today? There he is.
Great. There I am. Thanks for having me, Ian and John. I appreciate it. It's been great to join your program and talk a little shop around industrial supplies and wholesale.
Fantastic. Okay, good. So as you know, Barry, we have very, very few slides because the vast majority of our audience is on podcast. But I do have a slide up just as a prompt for you, I suppose, about your background, your career highlights, your education. If you don't mind, Barry, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you came from and the path you've taken to become the CEO of a big public company like Global Industrial Company?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I'm out of Port Washington, New York right now as running Global Industrial Company, but I've been in many places before that. Certainly, started my career and where I was born and raised was in the northern suburbs of Chicago. So believe it or not, earliest in my career, some of my first jobs were in retail and working in a warehouse. So I think that has been, kind of formative for me along the years, understanding, not only just the consumer retail environment, but also understanding the distribution environment. So I think that's kind of transcended my career, and then certainly spending time in a wide range of industries. Certainly have spent, almost equal time both on the consumer side and B2B. So that perspective really plays well, in the companies I've been a part of. Sometimes B2B strategies apply well in the consumer. Sometimes consumer applies well into B2B, which in today's e-commerce world, I think is becoming more the trend.
Right.
I think everyone's, customers today are, want the best experience. And so consumers been out there on the forefront for a long time. And, we've been hiring a lot of folks from consumer and retail into global. So I think that's been helping us quite a bit. And certainly have had stints. I was running a very large consumer electronics company called Adorama for many years. And, then had taken on the role at Global Industrial. just after that, as I had been on the board actually with Global Industrial since 2017. So I had really good perspective into the business. And the cool thing about it is, for years and years, B2B was considered an area where digital was going to take over. And I found that, for a decade, it just was really slow for it to hit.
Mm-hmm.
So being involved in the consumer retail side for a long time, finding the Amazons, developing mobile, innovating desktop, focusing on UX and all those things, it felt like the switch hadn't really made it B2B. And up until really a few years ago, where it really started to take hold. And, there's nothing like a pandemic, to be able to increase the adoption rate of e-commerce usage within the B2B space. And I think it's clearly here to stay, and part of the strategy that we've been forging ahead with Global Industrial. So I think it's hit full steam now.
Yeah. So when I look at your background, so you and I have a little bit of overlap. You were at Newark Electronics. I think you were there about 5 years after I was. You probably spent quite a bit of time still, though, cleaning up the mess I left. I think
they're still cleaning it up. Yeah.
Look, the company survived. That's my standard.
Okay.
And so that's, a pure B2B, and I know that business a little bit. So that's sort of, selling to electronic components to design engineers and
Sure.
MRO technicians, et cetera. Then you went to Office Depot, and that's an interesting company. I actually just wrote about them. It went out yesterday because they're going to start a marketplace. But that is really a hybrid retail B2B company, because that contract business, that's all B2B, deliveries to office buildings. But even that retail business, I would assume a lot of the people who walk in the door are actually small business owners, right? They're not parents doing school projects.
A lot of Soho, a lot of small business, fair amount of, consumer walk-in business. But it definitely trended on the smaller side. And certainly in that space, whether it's Depot or Staples, those businesses had a very large penetration of commercial business that they were doing, which drove, a huge piece of the business. And so it was, I think, on the e-commerce side, it was a good dose of being in both camps, both on the consumer and the B2B side.
It's interesting, Barry, we track e-commerce trends in distribution pretty closely, and we've looked at about 4,000 websites to see who can actually take a transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And we've organized it by sector. There are some sectors, Janssen in particular, where if you look at the companies 50 million and above, 65% of them can take a transaction now, right? We've been hearing this drumbeat, to your point, for years, literally since about 2000, but it's actually happening. You're going to be at a situation by mid-decade where you might have entire sectors deployed on e-commerce, and that's a very different game, right?
Yeah, and I think it's only going to accelerate. I think even, obviously 2020 drove a huge adoption rate in overall e-commerce, but you think about even where we're at right now, we're really not out of the pandemic to some extent. And, you're still seeing, a fair amount of remote work going on. So buyers today are leveraging the web to do more and more of their work. And they're finding that the capabilities, they're very efficient using the web. The fulfillment and distribution setups have become a lot more efficient and more effective. It's shipping not only parcel, but LTL, which is a big part of business to business is shipping the big and bulky. So I think those systems connected with e-commerce are making it a lot more convenient for business buyers to, transact online. So it's only going up.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing so everybody can see our good looking faces. And so Barry, you talked about the pandemic, and Global did really well during the pandemic while a lot of your peers struggled. You also mentioned your ability to manage bulky items. So how do you do that? Because it's such a struggle for most distributors to manage these bulky items, and clearly you differentiate there. And what did you do during the pandemic that helped you outperform, I guess, the industry, your peers?
Yeah, the COVID, I mean, look, it was, you think about, I think back to end of Q1, Q2 of 2020, when we really started to feel the pressure from the market. And our first priority, Ian, was always our associates' health and safety. I mean, that was the biggest piece, is being able to address, what does this mean for our company? What does it mean for our people? What does it mean for our distribution workers? So recognizing that we had to operate in a remote fashion, we did that within, 24 hours. And we are not a remote company. We're not a Silicon Valley tech company who's used to operating out of their home with their laptops. I mean, we are, like most industrial distributors. I mean, it's pretty much, people in seat and working together as a team. And so this was a must for us. So once we did that and got everybody remote, we started really thinking about, and got everybody safe, we started thinking about what is it that our customers need. And, Global has been, it's a history for over 70 years, really being a company that is nimble, quick, kind of a roll up the sleeve, get it done kind of attitude. That's actually part of our core values in the company, is we get it done and we roll up our sleeves. That's actually one of our core value terms. And it came to really help us out during that period. I mean, sourcing was really constrained. Obviously, everyone was looking for sanitizer and masks. We had a fair amount of that product where we had some supply chains set up, overseas to bring that product in, but not at the levels that we were dealing with. So we put a full court press, put a team together. Everyone rallied. We worked with countless factories, all across the globe to find some good sources. Once we finally locked in, we were able to get that product for our customers. And that really helped drive the momentum in the business at that point. We found that if we could really work hard, be creative on how we're going to get product in, that we could have a come out a lot better than we thought we were back in kind of the early Q2 phase. And it turned out, we had a record year that year. But I think from a standpoint of getting it done, our people and our sourcing just really came to play and did a great job. Now, at the same time, we had been building on our ACE strategy, and we had been developing out the marketing function in our organization. We brought on a chief marketing officer, Klaus Warner, to help us out. And we were looking for a proposition, how do we reposition our value at that point in time? And we came up with the concept of R3, which was our R3 marketing strategy. That was the first big signature campaign. We had been planning to do that.
So sorry. ACE stands for
accelerating the customer experience. That's our internal strategy. Kind of like the think about Big Blue with, Best Buy years ago, so sure. We have a very similar kind of mantra in the company around that. So that foundation was already in place. We didn't necessarily have to reinvent ourselves during that period. We already knew where we wanted to go, but we had this pandemic, we had to deal with. So we had to pivot a little bit around it. But some big companies, I think through the pandemic had to basically figure out, what are we going to do? Their sales tanked, and it's like, how are we going to reposition our business? Certainly folks in retail had to relook at their whole entire business, but we weren't in that type of situation. But we did realize that we had an opportunity to share a different value proposition with our customers. So we said to customers, look, we can help you restore, we can help your employees return to work, we can help you rebound the business, because we provide all the back office products that were actually needed for companies to kind of ready their environments to help associates come back. So we used that as a rally cry in our R3 campaign, and that was a massive boom. That was kind of the first, I would say, true signature campaign that we launched to market that really resonated with our customers at the time. And what we found is they not only came to us for PPE and sanitizer, but they started buying our partitions. They started buying all of our, furniture screens. We were really selling the full gamut. So even though core product at the time, what we sell heavy in the material handling space wasn't the, item of the moment, given a lot of factories were shut down, we were able to activate a portion of our assortment that became really valuable during that time. And we just kept tripling down on that. And that really helped us, and it's continued to help us, all the way through that year. And certainly we have a great assortment for pandemic and for protecting the environment into 21. But that whole notion that created kind of a rally cry in the organization. It really galvanized our company. We realized that we could find a path amidst the chaos, and we just kept hitting that gas pedal. And we really, delivered a great year last year because of it. And actually, for us, it was kind of one of those moments where if you believe you can get to the next level, you can. We had the right people, we had some investment because of our ACE strategy in place, and we just used the moment to kind of reposition our business. And now, the way we sit today, you saw in Q1, we've rebranded the whole company. We used to be called Systemax. We're no longer called Systemax. That's all in our rearview mirror. We are really about global industrial. And we've now activated a brand at a massive level that's really helping us get a lot of awareness in the marketplace. So, it was an interesting time. It kind of taught me, you could be caught in the pretzel, in kind of a stuck position, but you have to realize there's always a move. There's always a move. And sometimes it's not obvious, but you bring your team together and you find a couple cracks in the armor to get yourself out of it. And then you drive that, and it really makes a difference. And the people in the company, everyone loves the win. So it's
right. Yeah.
It was a really good time. And I think it created a lot of the whole initiative created a big engagement for us in the company, and everyone contributed, and they felt like they were doing good because you had a lot of companies out there that were struggling. They needed these supplies, and we were in the right spot to get it. But if we thought creatively at the time, we could have just faded a little bit, but I think that wasn't the attitude of our team, and certainly wasn't the fabric of our overall culture, to not sit back. I mean, we came in and said, how do we solve this? And it was a interesting time, and we're smack dab into another crazy one in 21 with all these supply chain constraints. So we're doing the same thing all over again.
So Barry, one thing that's impressive about what you've done, from what I can see in the numbers, is a lot of companies saw the PPE as part of their mix go up in 2020 for obvious reasons, right? But they also took a bit of a margin hit, right? And it seems like you guys not only didn't take a margin hit, you maybe even creeped up a little bit. So that's to your credit.
Yeah, well, if you guys recall back then, I mean, there was a constrained, it was constrained product. So unfortunately, and you remember the, people in the street were talking about, crazy prices, buying masks at retail, and there's a lot of uproar in that. But we were always market-based priced, and manufacturers were raising price coming in overseas because they had the opportunity to do so. So you had to basically try to save some of that money for your customers, but at the same time, it drove a little bit of improvement in margins. So that was helpful. But we had a lot of other product that that didn't sell at that time because it wasn't in favor. That was high margin product. We just happened to be fortunate that when you're selling constrained product, you're usually taking a little bit more of a margin, and when that ends up becoming a little bit bigger part of your overall balance of sale, it results in an aggregate margin lift. So that's basic economics.
Now you have, I think in your public documents you've disclosed you're like 40% private label. Is that right?
Yeah, that range.
Something in that range. I don't remember, but
yeah.
It's a lot. You guys have been very successful with private label, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the parts of the strategy, I think our company has been kind of a leader in product innovation for years. Developing really unique ways to take a product that's a commodity out there and change the spec a little bit to add a little bit more value. We call it the extra chip in the cookie.
Right.
So we have a very strong product development arm that kind of scours the market for products that our customers want, and then figures out to over-engineer it or change the engineering a bit to make it a little bit more value. And we typically sell that product at a value price in the market. And we started doing some brand test studies about a year and a half ago. Actually, it was I think it was prior to the pandemic, and we found that our customers and customers that don't buy from us really preferred the global private brand name. And they like the quality of it. They like the innovation. Believe it or not, it scored amazingly high relative to even some of the other really big brands in the market.
Yeah.
So that gave us a lot of confidence that, we had something that we could triple down on, and help create some differentiation for us in the market. So our private brand program, with global brand, we also have Interion, which is our big furniture brand. Those are big areas of emphasis for us. And we continue to, develop that pipeline by talking to customers, doing surveys in the market, and then at the same time, being a little innovative and doing some unique things. I mean, we've got a lot of interesting programs that we've launched with specifically for the customers, which create opportunity for us to expand in the future. But we have, we're now refining that strategy. We brought in a new SVP of merchandising, and then Alex Tomei, and he comes out of the consumer retail space, and
right.
Which typically has very strong capabilities in, brand rationalization, private brand strategy, overseas buying, things like that. So we're just, increasing our capability as we continue to lever more there. And we want to provide the customers what they want. So we have a strong arsenal of commercial brands, that we buy from. We have 1.7 million items in our total assortment online.
Wow.
So, I think for us, it's really about, it's not so much the SKU count that matters. It's more the quality of the assortment. That's where we've been, focused. And I think today consumers have massive choice in the number of items. You can go to Amazon and buy anything you want in the sun.
Right.
I think in our space, it's becoming more about curated assortments and getting the right items. You don't need every item. You just need to have the right items and teeing it up to a customer so that it becomes convenient. Sometimes too many SKUs can overwhelm people. And if you have too much redundancy in the line with too many brands, it can overwhelm. So
yeah,
I think
they call that, marketers call that the paradox of choice, right? So if you
Yeah.
have too many choices, you feel like the odds of making the wrong choice go up. So, and that's actually, Barry, you have a different background than most CEOs. I mean, it's not unprecedented for CEOs to come up from marketing or e-commerce,
Yeah.
but most of them tend to come up from, especially in distribution, finance, or in particular operations or sales. That feels like in this position, this different background brings some advantages, like understanding the role of private label and understanding, the idea of a curated assortment. How do you feel like that background has helped you in your career?
Oh, it's definitely helped. I mean, I think that strategically it helps quite a bit, having run merchandising, e-commerce, marketing, as a CMO in my past. I think that really gives you a focus on the customer. And so I've spent a lot of years with both on the consumer and B2B sides, spending time with getting the right assortment for our customers, evaluating SKU performance, how many brands are the right brand for a subcategory, and looking at particularly even a heavy dose of digital merchandising. How does the product appear on the page? How do your alternatives look below? How are accessories looking? So spending years running teams, doing all that gives you a good appreciation for how your assortment should look, for your company online. And so I don't do all that every day, but I certainly work with the leaders as I see myself as kind of a peer in many cases, working to solve problems in the company and, trying to get us better. So we've certainly put a huge emphasis on digital investment for Global Industrial. We've always had a very strong web presence. That's kind of the tip of the spear for us, and acquiring new customers and getting our assortment online. But I would tell you that we're continuing to double down on that. So in terms of web capabilities, we're addressing everything, from UX, new PDP design, search capabilities, personalization. All those areas are on the table for us that we're innovating. And as part of our strategy, we've been expanding to not just be a transaction player, but a player that companies can come to for knowledge. So we launched a content play called Knowledge Center, which is connected to globalindustrial.com. That was an awesome initiative. I mean, we have a place where, every quarter you can come in and consume content written by experts each day. You can come and read us like a magazine online if you want. And that's really part of our strategy to become more of a source for expert information. And we're using that content in a number of different ways, leveraging it through social, leveraging and providing that information directly from our managed sales team to our customers, and creating it obviously as a separate site. So we've been up for a while on that, and we continue to refine it. The strategy is not yet done. It's not done yet, but I think that is going to be really important for just companies in general to find additional value outside of just being a transaction player, but really starting to provide value. Because if you're just going to provide SKUs and grow your SKUs and not provide additional value, then there's a lot of players you can go to for that type of thing, and the market becomes more competitive. But we think that our knowledge of, particularly in material handling, storage, and shelving areas where we're strong, we can carry and provide that insights to buyers who need to make decisions. What type of workbench do they need in their facility?
Right.
What's the right type of garbage cans that they need to buy? What about storage and shelving, wire shelving? We're providing a lot of content and information in those areas to help them.
So what kind of information is in Knowledge Center? It sounds like there's some application assistance information, right? Is it primarily technical about products?
It's going to continue to expand in that space. We have a lot of newsworthy information. We talked about, how to prepare your business for the return. Now we're getting into, we've developed a lot of information around material handling,
Right.
storage and shelving, how to use those products effectively, how to create a more efficient workspace within your business. So we have, dozens of writers that are contributing articles. We review them, and then we want to make sure the content's fresh and continue to post it. So, that's been a really important area. We actually have a couple influencers that we're starting to deploy in the cleaning space.
Mhm.
That's an opportunity for us long term. It's very much a consumer strategy, but we see that, even us testing, we tested, TikTok this year and doing some.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, we're doing some very, very innovative stuff, and it's a test and learn environment, which is fun with that. So believe it or not, business buyers do look at TikTok and they watch videos.
So business buyers are people too.
Absolutely. Bringing the B2B experience, it's like taking B2B buyers into the consumer experience a bit.
Sorry, I managed to unplug my microphone. Hang on one second.
We actually have a question. What is Global Industrial key customer target segment? And if you can share, what segments did you grow during the pandemic?
Well, like a lot of industrial suppliers, we're very centered on kind of that manufacturing SIC area. I mean, like most of us, that are broadline distributors. So manufacturing makes up a big piece of it. But we have broad exposure into warehouse logistics, retail. We sell into pretty heavily. Retail during the pandemic was an interesting one because a lot of those stores were figuring out, how they need to batten down the hatches with sanitizer and masks and areas like that. But we do very well in that space. But we're broad. I mean, we sell to most of the SICs, but heavy into distribution, logistics facilities that are using material handling products. It's pretty straightforward for us. But there's definitely new markets that we're going to look at in the horizon.
Hey, Barry, when we talked probably several weeks ago now, you mentioned that despite the fact that you're really a distribution center, phone, online order-based business, you have a sales force, right?
Yeah. Oh,
and how do you deploy them? What do they do to add value for your customers?
Oh, it's huge. We do a lot of have a whole voice of customer program, and we survey customers every day about their experience. Our one-to-one selling organization probably drives some of the highest levels of satisfaction of anything that we offer in the company. And so if you think about it from an acquisition to retention standpoint, our go-to-market model, which is something we talk to investors about, really starts on the digital end, in terms of acquisition of customers through our paid spend program and digital activities, and that's growing and expanding. But as those customers start to increase their transactions with us from a website perspective, they grow up to be a little bit bigger customers. At that point, we actually engage them in our selling organization, both inside and outside. And so once they hop up into that group, the level of service and capability that we can provide that customer really starts to accelerate. And as a result, our retention goes up, our category expansion within those customers goes up, and long-term overall loyalty really accelerates. I mean, at a big level. So when you think about it on a continuum, starting from a new customer, getting into the growth phase, and then starting to really double down with more and more spend, our account management function is very, very skilled. I mean, a lot of them are, most of them are all OSHA certified. They're able to provide insights and information to customers about how to, support, new projects that happen within the logistics team, within the warehouse. We also have subject matter experts focused on particular product categories that can jump in with the account manager to provide added value, on that phone call. And then if we need to, we have, outside sales folks who work with strategic accounts to call and identify, larger opportunities with much bigger organizations at the enterprise level. So we're primarily focused on that kind of that small to mid-market customer. Yeah. We're not an integrated supplier like a Grainger or something like that, but we definitely get into those conversations from time to time. And, we find that we're really expanding and improving our value proposition at each level of the sales channel. So from the website, we're doing a fantastic job of really being able to extend ourselves as a e-commerce marketeer. And then as those customers grow and develop, we're starting to improve, our overall sales efficiency and capability to help expand the relationships of the mid-sized to large customers. And now we're starting to provide new services and capabilities, both online and offline for those customers. So traditional EDI capabilities, but we're building a lot of functionality into the account management function of our website to keep customers a little bit more sticky. So it's kind of a combination between working with our reps for solving problems and identifying new categories, but leveraging the web and its functionality to make it convenient for the customer to buy anytime they want. And we're tying that together with our fulfillment capabilities. So something I've talked about is investing in the digital supply chain. So digital innovation isn't just about the website, it's actually about the full end-to-end and how you can exploit digital in those areas. We're providing immediate text-based tracking, both for small parcel and for commercial LTL orders. And that was something we put in place, probably back in end of 2019. And it's really helped in terms of giving customers big awareness around where their order is. It's easy to do on the UPS parcel side, a lot more challenging to do it on the LTL side. Right. The technologies on the trans carriers aren't all the same.
Sure.
But we've kind of stitched that together, and I think we're doing a nice job on it. And our CSAT levels have gone up as a result. So the rep really has the opportunity to utilize, both digital and offline capabilities to help them provide value to the customer each day. And that's really what our focus is, particularly with our inside team, providing a full range of services to customers, and they love it. I think when we get somebody into that group, the retention rates are unbelievable.
So you have a customer service group that takes inbound phone calls for orders or questions, and then you have salespeople who work, account managers who work over the telephone, and then you have outside account managers as well. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, customer service deals primarily with, the service side, but we've been, our part of our strategy has really been about trying to create digital self-service on all the areas of service that customers are finding, they're calling us for. So if we can find those pockets of high call volume and digitize, a better solution online for them, that's how we kind of break the friction within buy and service chain. So we really look to, in a sense, digitizing the service experience through chat, AI-based chat, things like that have been very helpful for us over the last couple of years.
How are you dealing with the supply chain disruptions and the labor shortages that we're hearing from virtually every distributor CEO these days?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting point in time for us. I think I go back to economics. We're seeing a huge, surge in recovery, the United States in terms of demand and buying, and that's put a major pinch point, into the supply chain area for most companies. I think it's hit everybody in America, from people waiting for furniture for their homes, or waiting for something to come, even a delivery, for their own personal consumption. Everybody is facing supply chain challenges. We've had a very strong supply chain, good partners for a lot of years. We're facing it head on. Very much how we got very much, I would say, roll up the sleeves approach in 2020 with pandemic. We look at this as the same opportunity, leveraging our partners, getting creative where we can, to continue to ensure we get product to our customers quickly. But certainly has had an impact on the dropship community as well. There's a lot of manufacturers and distributors who have extended lead times in the market. And we're very transparent with our customers. We like to let them know, if an order is going to be delayed, we let them know electronically. They're not always happy about it.
Right.
Nobody's happy about price increases. On the raw material side, I think every supplier is getting hit with that. So we're gonna continue to adjust through it, and I hope we can get through it. I think just in terms of when we start to see some easing, nobody really knows when that's going to happen.
Right.
But I think the whole industry would like it to happen a lot sooner. That's for sure.
And have you had a hard time recruiting talent?
I think most of it. I think I think most companies are probably challenged on the distribution side. We've certainly had to relook at our look at our pay structures like most companies. We've been able to secure, the labor we need at this point. I think, but I see the labor challenge not just being us, but also our partners. Supplier partners are having challenges getting labor. Manufacturers are having trouble getting labor. That all translates to delays in the overall supply chain. But it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out. I think as these stimuluses start to come off, we won't be competing for those with labor.
Right.
Hopefully that'll start to free up, and we should see the country certainly getting back to full employment state or a little bit better. But
Right.
It's a challenge.
A couple of questions here, Barry. So one is, to what extent are you able to distinguish true demand versus hoarding? And two, how does pricing play into that in this environment?
Well, certainly I've had a lot of companies that have been out of office for a long time. They haven't updated anything. So you are seeing kind of a surge, in general. We have a pretty good understanding of, year-over-year comps by categories. So we understand, what we see is maybe surge demand versus regular demand. Pricing, I think, is just it's just a output of the economic situation we're in. Whenever you have constrained products, you're going to have increase in prices. So it starts with the raw materials. Those prices going up, we try to make sure that we try to pass on whatever savings we can to our customers. Our value proposition is to be a value player to them. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest, but we're in a competitive price position. So, we've had to look at pricing a lot more aggressively, over the last 6-7 months. And we try to manage that so that, our customers are getting the best value at any moment that they're buying from us. And we've sent out, I've sent out probably 2 emails company-wide to our customers, letting them know and keeping aware of the fact that we are seeing, supply chain challenges in the market, but just like everybody else, and we're trying to keep our availability high for them, and we're trying to keep our prices, at a point that they can buy still with confidence. And we've been holding true to that.
So, Barry, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about maybe advice you might have for, distribution executives who are perhaps earlier in their careers and, they want to be you someday. They want to be the CEO of a distributor of some kind at some point in time. And so you've been in a few different companies. You've probably had different mentors and you've been a mentor. But if you're going to give advice to someone who, they want to achieve the top spot like you have done really a couple times now, when you talk to the people you're mentoring, what's the synopsis of the advice you give them on, how to be a great leader and how to become a CEO?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ian. And, I've always learned by experience. I think having a wide range of experiences throughout your career eventually culminates into having kind of a wide base of knowledge about your industry, about your company, and ultimately how to build strategy. Because, I started out at a very early age in the warehouses, working in warehouses, doing put away, doing inbound, packing orders, and I did that for years, in the summers. And I think, eventually you make your way into the catalog department. You start talking to people there, and wow, how does that work? And that's how I kind of learned a bit at that level and through it, And then I think starting out in different roles in different companies, I've gone from being a salesman in the commercial office product space. It was one of the first major jobs I had. That was probably one of the best experiences ever on how to sell value. Mm-hmm. That has never changed in terms of my mindset with companies. So I've always kept some of those principles in the back of my head, moved into marketing roles, moved into all operations roles, then became general manager. So you're seeing how the whole thing comes together. And I think the most thing that's important through that is not only picking up all those different experiences, but being able to demonstrate that you've got a point of view and a plan about how your organization can get better. And so you're always challenging, within the company, you're always trying to be somebody that is looking at the objectives of the business and then building those plans and working with those teams to try to do something different in the business. And I think as you start to do that over time, you start to kind of act like the CEO. I mean, you're there to provide value each day. It doesn't matter what company you're with. So you're trying to look for differentiation. What can we do there? You know, what do we do to drive and execute on the things that we're asked to do relative to the goals and objectives of the business? But most of all, you gotta love what you do, and I love what I do. So I love both sides, believe it or not, consumer and B2B. I find a lot of parallels between the two. The red thread has always been e-commerce for me, and I got into it because I just remember seeing my first web page come up and recognizing, I'm saying to myself, boy, catalogs are dead. I said, I'm switching out of catalogs and going right to the web. So, that was always exciting. So it has to have, you have to be excited about it each day. And, I certainly know people throughout their careers, they kind of get down one particular path. And at some point they're like, I don't like doing this anymore. That has never been my case.
Right.
Our business at Global, we have things to solve every day. I work with some great people. I love taking kind of the impossible problems, figuring out how we solve it. The Apollo 13 approach. I use that a lot, and that's fun. I think it can be a lot of fun. So when you show that energy throughout your career, and you're constantly bringing new ideas to the table, and you're constantly challenging yourself, it gets noticed after a while. And so the opportunity will come, and the more knowledgeable you get, and the more energy you bring to the table each day, I think that eventually turns out and becomes really beneficial for getting to the next level.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's how it worked for me.
Yeah. So I noticed as you've built teams over the years, Barry, maybe this is just my impression, but it feels like you put together teams that are made up of a combination of people that were there when you got there and some outside talent that you've brought in. And getting those cultures to work together very productively isn't always easy. So what do you say to those folks? What's your philosophy? How do you get those sort of the people who have the DNA in the company that you just joined, along with people who have, maybe a fresh outside perspective, but don't have that DNA? How do you stitch them together so that the whole is greater than some of the parts?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Ian. That's kind of most of what most executives spend a lot of their time doing. And, I think in the current case, most of the companies that I've been a part of have tremendous legacy capability. They got great institutional knowledge. They understand the industry, the business, the subtleties of it. So when you combine that with executives that have new talent to bring in, right now you're helping the whole organization go forward. But to your point, you need it all to gel. So I think a lot of it comes from listening, giving people the opportunity to chart a course of where they think their department or group needs to go, but being very clear about the context of the strategy and what we're trying to achieve. And so that always starts with a good solid plan. So I've certainly been a part of companies that they don't have a well-written plan, and they needed one, or the plan changes, every minute. I think we try to stay fairly true to the strategies, at least for the last two companies I've been with. But when those executives come in, they've got an opportunity to put a little English on their area,
right,
and listening to it, being accepting of it, and then, trying to help guide where they're out of bounds, and then kind of really forcing the collaboration, making sure that you bring people in that like to collaborate. It's very hard to operate, in a siloed organization. So I think, making sure that the people you bring in know that they may be coming into a great legacy organization with really good people. But at the end of the day, they're bringing in skills that maybe we needed that we didn't have. So you've got to help the folks that have been there for a while understand that new people are coming in, and they're going to be thinking about how to do something differently. Don't get nervous by the change, embrace it, and realize that we're going to be on this path together. And that kind of that only comes from communication and discussion with the teams, having clear operating meetings each week so that everyone's clear on the goals, to see how everyone's progressing. But you've got to build that teamwork and that culture. And I think it comes from, clearly identified goals, clear vision of the business, so everyone understands, and then having us work together as a team to make sure that the things that all the executives are driving, all the other executives kind of see it and they know it, and they start to bring it together, and it really works. And I think that's what helps kind of integrate, the best of the history with the best of the new.
Well, I know you've only been there a couple of years now, and your stock's up like 50% or something. I looked at the numbers before the call. So whatever you're doing, it's working. And that was right through the teeth of, this unprecedented time with the pandemic. So you're doing a great job. And Barry, thank you so much for making time for us today. It's great to talk to you. Obviously, if you ever need a favor, we're here for you, like you were here for us today. So
Right.
I'm going to wrap up now. So thanks to everyone for joining us. Barry, especially thanks to you. It was a fascinating discussion. We appreciate you sharing your wisdom based on your really tremendous background and experience. Our next show is going to be on Wednesday, September 29th. We'll have Chuck Cohen, who's the managing director at Benco Dental. Between now and then, we've actually got a rare doubleheader on September 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern. We are doing the Distributor Services Imperative. It's a program we're doing with the National Association of Wholesaler Distributors. There's the URL. And then at noon that day Eastern, we're doing the ROI of Cloud ERP. You can go to distributionstrategy.com and click on events. There's some ways you can follow us there, some contact information for Jonathan and me. Thank you so much for attending today. To all you podcast listeners, I hope you enjoyed the show. And Barry, have a wonderful day. Best wishes for even more success as you continue to lead Global Industrial to new heights. And Jonathan, always good to host with you. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day. Bye now.